folks, Jonathan here, working on the bushings for the front end now, using this Delrin. Here is the old bushing. It's just a rubber bushing with a steel sleeve and a 3/8 bolt. And here's what I've made. Now this is a two-piece bushing, so because we're going to have to be able to slide it in, because this Delrin won't collapse on the ends like this rubber will. Oop, I just knocked one of them down. And anyway, this is what we've done. We've turned them out in two pieces, and let me see, hopefully you can see inside. I've got a sleeve running through it, and I've increased the size of the bolt from 3/8 to 7/16. And so I bought some grade 8 bolts for that. So I've got let me see how many, 8 to do. I got actually 16 halves to do, and I've got 4 done. And then the piece that I'm actually using in the center, I didn't realize, turned out I drilled it. It was already the right diameter on the outside, but I went ahead and drilled it for the 7/16, and then when I went to cut it, I found out it was hardened. So I had to cut it with the cutoff wheel. It wouldn't cut, the blade wouldn't cut it on the bandsaw. So, but anyway, that's what we've got, and should work out just fine. I'm working on boxing the front A-frame, so I figured I'd jump back on the front end for just a little while and try to get a little bit done on it. So anyway, I'll show you more as I go. Okay folks, now what we're doing is boxing the A-frame, and as you can see, I'm using 1 inch wide. I've got a gap, a little gap on each side, which I like because I'm going to really burn this in good. If it came all the way over and you weld it and then you grind it, you're going to grind your weld off. So I kind of like it like that. So we're going to fill that in really good. We'll join it all together, and then I'm going to actually fill in here with the welder and bring this out even, and that'll strengthen it up really well, and then we'll do the other side. Okay, excuse my air leak there, but got this side welded. Looks like it's going to work out really good. I feel a whole lot safer, and I don't know if I'm going to grind it, and I may grind it before I paint it, or I may just paint it like it is, so we'll see. Anyway, I'm going to get the other side done, and then this A-frame will be ready. Alright. Okay folks, we've gotten one A-frame boxed and the bushings made for it, so I'm going to jump back to the back here for a little bit. I want to go ahead and get my rims welded up. Unfortunately, not sure why I didn't, but I didn't clean I didn't clean the center before I pressed it in here. And it's not really pressed in. I mean, it's just, I've got the tolerance so close that you can tap it around and move it, but it stays where it needs to stay. But I didn't clean it, and I didn't really clean the rim. I need to clean the you know, any oils and stuff off the rim. So I'm going to pull it back apart and do that now. Now what I've done is I've set this up on the other side. I put studs in, and I ran the studs up until there's actually a lip there to keep them from pulling all the way into the flange, and you know that's where they would have went through the drum, but now they're going to go through the rotor, of course. But anyway, what I'm going to do is pull this wheel back apart, clean it real good, get everything ready, and then get it back set on here, and then we'll get it re-dial indicated in, which is not dial indicated in perfect, you know, where I would normally weld it anyway. So but we're going to need to do that with the rotor off, that way I can get it tacked really good around it, and once I get that, I can pull it off, get a really good weld around it, and you know, I don't see any issues with it. And then I'm going to do both of them, go ahead and get them knocked out, and maybe I can get the tires on it pretty soon, and that way we can eventually get this sit down and get a ride height set up. Like I said, when I sit it down, I'm going to go ahead and cut the body out and get the back section of the body sitting on it, just so we can see where our ride height's going to be, or where I want it at, and then we'll go from there with the suspension. I've still got to make the other bracket, and I've still got to grind this bracket because this is just a rough cutout. We'll get it ground good and make it look good, but it's hard to see. It's still hard to see. I know I've got light issues in here, but we're going to work on that soon. But the bracket goes all the way around and bolts down here, and then comes back, bolts to the rotor. So you know, really strong. I know somebody said something about putting a piece of, or maybe a gusset on here, but you don't need it on this. This rotor is, or this caliper is made to slide left and right anyway. And the way that I've done this with clamping it with nice, really good brake pads in there, you know, I clamped it using air, and that held it exactly straight and where I wanted it. So when I, you know, I made the mount for it. So we're good to go there. Everything's fine, and I've got to figure out exactly what I'm going to do to finish these rotors up. Whether I'm going to surface this front section or go in and do the inside to get. I just want these studs to come in just a little bit more. You know, 1/16 of an inch would be great. And I may take a little bit off the rotor here just for weight. And you know, there's no use drilling these. They're not, or slotting them. You know, they're not vented rotors no more. They used to be, but they're not vented anymore. So it's really not going to help them to be drilled or slotted. So you know, we could lose some weight that way, but I mean, it wouldn't really help that much. You know, we're not too worried about heat dissipation. There's not an issue. You know, when you just one quick stop at the end of the track, it's not like we're running a road race. So no issue there. Okay, folks, I got it dial indicated in. Was ready to weld it. Went as far as to turn the welder on, and then I checked over everything, and my rear end, beating it around or whatever I was doing, has moved, and I almost screwed up. So my first thought came when I checked the back spacing, and the back spacing was about 4, a little over, and I knew something just wasn't right. And I've got it set up at an inch and a half right here, and then I got to looking and seeing how far it moved. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and start over here, and I'm going to go ahead and tighten the U-bolts down to keep this rear end from moving. I had everything set up where I wanted it, but I should have known that if I wasn't careful, it was all going to move. So we're going to do a redo here, and then I'll get to welding. Okay, got everything straightened back out. I ended up making these straps. These are 3/16. What this does is evens out all the weight on the U-bolt, because we got 3.5 inch U-bolts and a little over 3 inch tube. So that's taken care of, and I won't weld them on until I get, you know, my pinion angle where I want it. So that'll work out fine. Now, if I hadn't ran them, it would have put all the weight pulling down in the center, and I would have either had to tighten until I rebent my U-bolts, or you know, they may have snapped. So we didn't want to take a chance on that. So just made one for each side and got that done. Got it lined up where I want it, got it tightened down, and I'll show you how far I was off. Okay, if I had welded this where I had it, we would have had a 1 inch offset, or 1 inch from the control arm. So the tire would have been rubbing on the control arm. So that was almost a big mistake, but I caught it, thank goodness. So now we're going to have to tap this rim around, and then we'll get to welding on it. That's why I was showing a 4 inch back spacing, and I knew that I was right around 3.5 inch on the back spacing. So that's a shame, because I think it's going to work out to where the 3.5s would have worked perfect. And let me see, the brackets. Another thing I wanted to touch on. One of the reasons that I didn't have to go into this is because we got really, really lucky. Okay, this piece on our calipers does not move, and this piece does move. So you want to mount this piece to where it's in the center of the slot, so you're not rubbing anywhere, and then that gives you the correct travel. And somehow, luckily, amazingly, our caliper lined up exactly with our plate, the outside of it, and so I didn't have to offset this at all. And that was all luck. That wasn't that wasn't anything that I had planned, because I figured I'd have to machine this bracket out of something thicker and get the offset right on it. And the only thing I've run into is these bolts. This bolted to a cast iron bracket, so these bolts are a little long. I've got 2 washers on them, and I can still see them in there sticking out. And I'm sorry for the light, but so I'm going to end up probably shortening them bolts up, changing it around a little bit, but still got to make another bracket. But we're going to go ahead and get these rims welded up now. That's the goal, and tack them really good where they can't move, and then we'll go from there. But like I said, it looks like I'm going to have to knock this one back loose. And like I said, I didn't weld it yet, didn't tack it or anything, so I've got it cleaned up good in there. It's hard to see, but I did get it cleaned up and ground good. So, all right, show you more. All right, now we finally got one of them tacked about every 2 inches, and I'm going to take it off now and weld it. The only issues I've seen I don't like is where this outer lip, let me see where it's at. I actually tried to grind it a little bit to get it straight. When they the two rim halves came together where they welded it, it just wasn't quite like I liked it. It's still a little bit off, but besides that, we're ready to go. It's good and straight. This is not going to have any issues. I'll tell you what I actually done, just for the heck of it. I've got a Chevrolet Cobalt out there, and I jacked the back up, and I put the dial indicator same spot as what I'm checking this one. And I actually, that thing from the factory was up to 60 thousandths off. This I've got within 10. So, you know, shouldn't have any issues here. There's no wobble, there's no bouncing up and down or nothing like that. And, you know, the reason being is our centers were, you know, perfectly round. So, you know, there's no way for it to be up or down, you know, off either way. And once you get it dial indicated in on the sides, then, you know, then you're perfect and good to go. So what I'm going to do now is take the rim back off. Well, it looks like I got it about every 4 inches, 4 or 5 inches. But we'll take the rim back off. I'm going to put a solid weld all the way around that. And this rim will be ready to drill a hole for the valve stem. And I might clean them up, paint them, and then we'll get the tires on them. But go ahead and get the other rim finished up too while I'm at it. And we'll see if we can get this all knocked out. Okay, so far we've got one rim welded, and we've got one tacked, and getting ready to take it back off and weld it. So anyway, I just wanted to go through something here real quick and show you what I'm fighting with here. You know, there's actually a lot of space between them tires, you know, in comparison to a lot of drag cars, you know, some of the stuff that I've seen built. So, you know, we didn't narrow it that far. Our back spacing did end up being, let me see, pretty much 3.5. Well, exactly 3.5, really. So we could have used the other rims, which, you know, not an issue. We saved a lot of money doing it this way. A lot more work, but saved some money. Probably saved almost $200. All right, here's what we got: 53 1/4. Now you got to add 2 inches of that for the tires, so 55 1/4 is what our maximum width is going to be. So we're going to go down to the body and take a look. All right, here's the body. It's sitting here waiting on me, I guess. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure inside, from inside quarter panel to quarter panel, and get an idea of what it is up front. And I can see the body tapers, so hopefully it don't taper real bad. Let's see if we can get by with 55 1/4. All right, up top here, it's going to be at a narrow point. We've got 56 1/2. Down lower, we've got about 58. So the lower we go, the better we are. So I think we're okay there. What really worries me is the inside back, because it looks like it tapers. So we're shooting for over 55 here. Kind of dark in there. Right here, okay, 56. So we're going to be cutting it pretty close. Now 55 1/2 or 55 1/4, that's the maximum of where the tire bows out. So everything else will be a little skinnier, but I think we can work with it. But you can see what I'm doing here, how close I'm working with it. The only solution would have been to start with was to do the frame narrower, and then we could have put the control arms in narrower, and then we could have narrowed up the rear end more. But we'll fight it on there. It'll be okay. I think she'll be fine when we're done. It's just gonna be a little close. And you know, it depends a lot on how far we drop the body down over the tires. You know, it's hard to say. Once we get it cut out and we get it up there, we'll be able to see a whole lot more. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. I'm fighting with the width, but I think we'll make it before it's over with. All right. Kind of weird. I noticed GM on these rims, so maybe they are Chevrolet. But anyway, we're welded up, ready to go. Okay, folks, I wanted to try to show you something here. Hopefully, I can show you before I take this side of the front end apart. And as you can see, I've just got a level here, and I'm hoping you can see the bubble in the level. I think you can from there. You can see it's all the way in, and we've got positive camber as of right now. Now, you know, if anyone is familiar with twin I-beam suspension, or even some of the old suspension like the Ford Granadas and stuff had, and old Mustangs with the strut style suspension, without having double A-frames is what I'm getting at. You know, you got a lot of change in the camber as you go up and down, and I just wanted to show you that even with A-frame top and bottom, you can see we're actually at a positive camber. And then as I go up, you should be able to see the bubble level off. Now this would be ride height, this would be 0. And then as you go above that, hopefully you can see that. I'm staring a little bit there. Let me stare it back. All right. When you go above it, above the ride height, you can see that it kicks to the outside, and that's negative. And you're going to get that with all vehicles. Twin I-beam Ford seems to be one that moves a whole lot. When I was a kid in high school, I was the only one that was allowed to use the torch in auto mechanics, and I actually worked for the teacher at night at his house, but Mr. Gunner, and one of the boys had a twin I-beam Ford, older short bed, and he wanted to lower the front, and I didn't want to do it, but he talked me into it, and we heated the coils, and he was up front with a measuring tape. And of course the next day he came back with a set of springs because it had so much negative caster that negative camber that you know, it was just terrible. The wheels were leaning so bad. So anyway, you get a lot of it on twin I-beam, stuff like that, but this is not so bad. But you know, that's one of the reasons I want to get the front on enough to lower it down and go ahead and get a ride height, get what springs I'm going to use on the front, and that way we can set our camber and get everything right on it. And that way we'll at least be adjusted in, you know, at ride height. And then it's going to change, of course, when you hit a bump, or you know, when the front end starts to, you know, come up some. So just wanted to show you that. But all vehicles are going to have a change. There's, you know, it's not going to stay the same all the way up and down. It would be nearly impossible. I mean, I'm sure there's some kind of suspension out there that could do it, but anyway, show you that before I take this side apart. And I'm working on, I've got the rotor on this side, getting ready to make the bracket for the caliper, and we'll clean this bracket up and we'll get that done. And again, I'm sorry about the light, but I'll show you a little better here shortly. And we'll get the other caliper on, we'll get the other wheel on. Well, I thought I was going to make the bracket, but I remembered my wife's wanting to go out to eat tonight, so we'll have to jump in the rollback and run. That way if I get a call I can take it. But anyway, just wanted to touch on something with the whole ordeal here. I want everybody to remember, and the ones that don't know, to know that you know, the concept behind this, why we're doing it like we're doing it. We're trying to build this thing cheap, and I sort of set myself at a $2,000 limit, and as of right now we're way under that. We're under $1,000. I've got a couple things that I got to add the U-bolts on, a couple just small things I need to add on to our price list, but we're somewhere probably around $800 right now. So I think we're going to be able to do it when we're done, and be able to have something to play with anyway, and not necessarily building it to be any certain speed or to be fast, but one thing about it, I hope everybody gets something out of this, and the main thing I would prefer for people to get out of it is to realize that just because somebody tells you can't do something don't mean you can't do it. A lot of people are amazed at some of the stuff, building rims and narrowing it myself and stuff like that, but it's not that big of a deal. It's really not. And anybody in my book can do it if they just want to. And I mean, if you don't do it, you're just sourcing out for somebody else to do it. And I'm not saying that they're not better at doing it than I am, because I'm sure they are, especially if they do it for a living, because you're not going to beat a man at his own game. But you don't have to do that. If you're willing to do the work and jump in there and do it, just have a little bit of faith in yourself, and know that this stuff can be done in a little shop, and you don't have to have multi-million-dollar shop and tools to do something like this. These rims, welding these rims up, somebody's got to weld them up. I mean, they might have a machine that does it now with a robot, but it's they've been building rims for well over 100 years. So I mean, somebody done them by hand just like this at one time, and they was running over 100 mile an hour in the 20s. So it's not that big of an issue to do stuff like this. It's just forcing yourself to get out and do it. And everybody just needs to have a little more faith in themselves. Anybody can do this if they just want to do it. But all right, well, anyway, I appreciate everybody watching, and we'll keep you updated on this, and we're moving right along on it. All right, appreciate everybody watching. Bye.